बेटा लास्ट टाइम बोल रहे हैं। Purvi, I think we can start.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Cloud Native webinar. My name is Purvi Debuka, and I'll be your moderator here today. I work as the Customer Success Associate at Zeek Labs, and I'm really excited to be hosting this session here. So let's get started. Who are we? Zeek Labs is the leading name in enterprise upskilling. We are committed to provide a great value addition to the IT industry by enabling our corporate partners to upskill and reskill the workforce on cutting-edge technologies like AI and machine learning, big data, cloud, Internet of Things, web, and the others. But wondering why you would need this? Well, the workplace has really revolutionized drastically since the first industrial revolution of 1784, and transcending to the fourth industrial revolution calls for workforce transformation. So this transition to the Internet of Things demands continuous investment in people, where skilling and reskilling of the workforce has served as the key strategy. So essentially, we provide employee capability building solutions to build a future-ready workforce. We provide continuous learning programs and one-off training designed to match with your training needs. And we do this by the means of our continuous learning programs, which provide looks like this. So here's a glimpse of the employee reskilling structure, which is followed by our performance benchmarking through assessments and evaluations. Here's a look at some of our training programs, which includes entry-level training, customized emerging technology, tech workshops, and our continuous learning programs. So here is the entire structure of our continuous learning program that kicks off with the stakeholder discussion, mainly that involves active discourse between our experts and technology leaders, followed by a pre-training assessment to gauge the skill requirement. Our experts then customize the training plan to align with the training needs and goals. Following training delivery, a post-assessment test is conducted to analyze the ROI and identify future learning requirements. You can find multifarious learning materials available on EdYoda, which is our learning platform. So our experts have delivered successful trainings at Fortune 500 companies like Accenture, Cisco, GE, IBM. And this is pretty much about it. With this, we come to the end of our presentation. With me today here, we have our cloud tech expert, Mr. Ashish Pandey. Ashish is the alumni of NIT Allahabad. He has a rich experience of more than 13 years in developing and architecturing IT products. He holds experience working with companies like Aricent and Gravis. As a learning enabler, Ashish has already trained teams from Fortune 500 organizations like Cisco, IBM, HP Enterprise, and Mavenir, among others. Currently, he is actively involved in building our technology learning platform, edyoda.com. So anyway, without further ado, let's start with Ashish here. And I will be here throughout the webinar in case you need me. So in case you have any queries, just ping me here in the chat box. And during the course of the webinar, if you have any tech questions, feel free to drop it in at the Q&A box. The last 10 minutes of the webinar, we would open up floor to your burning questions. So let's get started. Thank you. Ashish, over to you now.
Thanks, Puri, for the introduction, and welcome everyone in attending this webinar. So, how I'm going to go ahead is that first I will just touch some of the topics which so that everybody is on the same page. After discussing some of the concepts and everything, we will immediately jump to the lab part, where we are going to talk about how to build a cloud native platform. But before that, we will first define what is cloud native platform, why do we need it, and how it can benefit you, and things like that. Then I have taken a set of technologies which I have integrated, and it's running on my AWS cloud. So I will basically give you a demo about how things are working in the real life. So uh, to begin with, since a lot of confusion is there today in terms of what is cloud native, and what is the difference in these two. So just to make this thing clear here, um, when we talk about cloud native, it's not really just a cloud. It just means that the cloud has certain property, certain properties, like it's more scalable, it's dynamic, and all of that. So cloud native is basically an approach to build loosely coupled and scalable applications for modern and dynamic environments. Okay, that's it. Like if you have to summarize it in 2 lines, I wanted to make it crisp. So this is how you can define cloud native technologies. So it has nothing to do with cloud. It's just that cloud native applications work better on the top of a cloud. Okay, and these days everybody is anyway moving to the cloud, whether it's a public cloud or private cloud. Cloud native applications work better on the cloud, but having said that, you can actually run them on your on-premise environment. A lot of people are working on building a cloud native application for their on-premise environment as well. So you can find the standard CNCF definition here. So when somebody is saying, okay, how do we make scalable application? How do we make sure that all these things that we are talking about, loosely coupled, scalable, dynamic, how do we make sure of that? So for that, a lot of practices and processes are there. But the main thing is you need to have a CI/CD integration in your organization. You need to have a DevOps processes. You need to have your code written in a microservices manner, and then the deployment is normally on the top of containers. So these are the four. Again, there are so many other things involved here. I'm not going to go into too much detail of that, but just to quickly bring everybody on the same page, these are some of the properties of the cloud native application. Okay, now here we use a term called microservice. So what is a microservice? Ultimately, it's your application which is meant to be scalable, especially horizontally scalable. It is supposed to run anywhere, so it has to be portable. The main thing about microservices is previously, if you remember, we used to have this thing that when you are building our softwares, it has to be bug free. Now we have realized that you cannot just create software without a bug. So we focus more on the recovery, right? So application has to be made in such a way that if there is some failure, it should be automatically recovered, or if manual effort is involved, then it should be very, very fast. So basically we see a lot of things about agile and DevOps and all of that, but being a developer, you would agree that ultimately it boils down to your code, right? The way you have written your code, the way you deploy your code. So microservice is basically something that can give you more agility. It can be fast, and you can develop your softwares in a faster manner. So now the challenge here is that everybody is moving from monolith to microservices. Okay. Now the thing is, there are a lot of things to unlearn in that process. Okay. Not only you have to learn a lot of new technologies, but you have to unlearn a lot of things. And one of the things to learn is that you need a very robust cloud native platform. Okay. Like just simply using Docker and Kubernetes is not enough. You need to have proper monitoring tool, visualization tools, and a lot of other things. So what do we expect from a cloud native platform? A cloud native platform should be giving you a lot of options in terms of deployment, in terms of testing, in terms of the agility. You should be able to change your code very frequently, and you should be sure to a certain degree that it will work. Okay, of course you cannot be 100% sure anytime, but we have a lot of things. You must have heard about blue green deployment, canary deployment, AB testing, all of that. So it should provide you a mechanism to do that, and in the demo I'm going to show you what we mean by that. It should allow you to do a traffic control at the pod level, or at least a set of pod levels, right? So you should have this kind of control that if you are running two versions of your applications, how we can divide the traffic between the two sets. Okay, right? A lot of this thing is done by the service mesh. Provide the observability. Now this is a very important thing here. A lot of people flounder here because they say that, okay, now I have got hundreds of microservices, right? Previously I had just one application, so it was good to just manage that. But now when we have got too many things to take care of it, how do I know that if there is a problem, where to look, right? Whether to go for the tool like Docker and Kubernetes and go and check their log, or which application log I should go for, correct? So basically one thing to notice here is that in microservices, logs are not the only thing which can provide you observability, right? There are a lot of things like logging, tracing. There are a lot of matrices generated by your container management or container orchestration tools. A lot of alerts can be generated. So ideally, when we talk about monitoring now, we should be looking at all these things: logging, tracing, matrices, and so on and so forth, right? While doing the troubleshooting, we should know that, okay, where exactly to look and how to look it. So being an experienced person, like if you have already have experience of, let's say, more than 5 years in the industry, we have a certain way, like we develop our own way of troubleshooting things. And one of the thing is that, okay, go deeper into the logs, but it's something that we need to change. And I'm going to show you that how exactly we can do a troubleshooting in the new dynamic environment. So in DevOps, of course, it's all about automation. So whatever tool you are using, you should be looking at it, that how we can encourage more automation, how we can extend the platform itself. So whether there are multiple plugins or for integration available or not, all of this. So to give you a picture of the cloud native platform, first of all, of course, you need to have your host OS, and then you will be using some kind of container, Docker or Rocket, or there are multiple other type of container like Linux container, or if you are using Cloud Foundry, they have their own container. Then you have to have a container management tool, right? Something that can automate the container creation, deletion, management, all of that. That's your container orchestration. Then on the top of that, you might have to put something to provide you traffic control, something to collect logs, collect matrices, create alerts and other things. And then what ideally you want is something like a dashboard, which you can just have a look and see that how my multiple microservices are performing with each other. Okay. So this is what I'm going to look at today, right? We are going to basically see that how things work. I mean, how all these tools work together. So I have already created the system. I will go through I'll go through the code, that how I created it, and then we will give you a demo on top of that. Okay, guys, just one thing, once again, you can write your questions in the Q&A. I'll be taking your Q&A towards the end of the session. Okay, just last 10 minutes I'll be handling your questions. So keep writing your questions there. Okay. Right. So basically the lowest level, which is basically your host operating system, You can use anything, Red Hat, CentOS, Ubuntu, or anything. I am, by the way, using Amazon Linux too for my demo. Over that, I'm using Docker as a container runtime. I think a lot of you must be familiar with this. Then on the top of that, I'm using Kubernetes for orchestrating the containers and managing the containers. And on the top of that, I'm using Istio with version 1.5. And along with this Istio installation, I'm installing these other tools like Prometheus for monitoring, Grafana for visualizing your logs and alerts and matrices, Kiali and Jagger. Kiali is basically there for visualizing your Istio. Okay, so a lot of things we will see that how we can use Kiali to visualize our applications. And then Jaeger is for tracing. Okay, how we can basically use this for tracing activities, right? So before I move on to the lab part, I would like to just understand a bit from you that what is your background. So I'm just going to basically launch a quick poll, answer it, and till then I'm just going to open my setup for the demo. Okay. Just hold on here. Okay, I'm launching the poll. Please answer it. And till then, I'm going to start my demo. By the way, I'm not getting any questions, so feel free to write your questions there. Okay, so I'll just take one question here. It has came from Vishal. So he's asking, is microservice process of deployment or enhancement of application for dynamic environment and why it is highly in demand? Okay, so basically he's saying that why exactly microservice is so much in demand. I think for a lot of people it might be obvious, but let me just say it out loud. So microservices gives you a lot of flexibility. Okay, basically the whole concept of microservices that instead of having millions of lines of code for one software, divide your software into multiple smaller parts, right? And each small part would be independent, okay, as an application. And then these various applications can talk to each other. And that way, basically, we have now very small application talking to each other over network, and they are more portable. So in fact, for your managers who are actually doing the business and talking a lot in that sense, they have a dilemma of what kind of infrastructure they should go for. They should go for AWS cloud or Azure cloud or on-premise and things like that. So with microservices approach, and along with other these tools like Docker, Kubernetes, etc., you can design your system in such a way that you concentrate on your application code. What kind of infrastructure is running behind the scene, that should not be your concern. Okay, so in one word, it should become more portable, right? Right now you must have seen a lot of this kind of issue that okay, you are running your application on testing environment, but when it goes to production it kind of crashes or something, right? That happens because your testing environment, your dev environment is very different from your production environment. So one of the motive of going to microservices is that make your applications more portable, right? There's a lot of literature actually behind the scene. I don't want to go into depth of it, but in one sentence, microservices makes it more portable, more scalable. So today you have just let's say 100 people clicking on your website, and tomorrow we have got millions of users. How do you take care of that? Okay, so all of that is there. So that is why we are basically going for microservices. Okay, and I'm not saying that it's easy, by the way, but it's worth the effort that we put in here. Okay, I'll take just one more question, and the other questions I'll take maybe later on. Satyajit is asking, what is the difference between cloud native and microservice? So remember, cloud native is just an approach. Okay, cloud native approach uses microservices approach. So for example, you must have used Spring Boot, Hibernate, all this kind of microservice based frameworks. There the container is not necessary. Using Docker container for microservice is not necessary. But when we talk about cloud native approach, we talk about microservice. That's one thing. Second, you need to have containers. And then third is you need to have DevOps processes. And then you should have CI/CD pipeline. Okay, so microservice looks at microservice is a view only for developers. Whereas when you say cloud native, we are talking about how it is being tested, how it is being deployed, how it is being monitored, how it is developed, and how the whole software development lifecycle is being handled. Okay, that is the difference between cloud native and microservices. So think about cloud native like a superset of microservices. Okay. So maybe Harsh and others, I'll just come to your questions a bit later. We have got a lot of questions and I want to answer as many as I can. But let's start with a demo. A lot of questions would be answered, I think, in the process. So I'm using AWS Cloud for my infrastructure. So these are 3 servers I have created, 1 master and 2 worker nodes, right? And if you're familiar with Docker and Kubernetes, then this is my master node. Okay, let me just clear the screen. So right now, this is my master server and Kubernetes cluster. Don't worry if you, if you have not gone through Kubernetes. I'm just telling it for people who know Kubernetes for now. So here you can see that we have a lot of applications running already. How I created it, I will take you through that journey as well. Okay, so these are the various applications running currently on my system. Okay, now how did I created it? So this is my GitHub link. I will be sharing it after the webinar. So first, what I did was I simply started with Docker and Kubernetes installation. Right? Believe me, I have not used a single command other than what is written in this repository. Okay, maybe 1 or 2 commands. But other than that, everything is there. You can build your own cloud native platform just by following all these documents. Okay, and it is given in the stepwise manner. So first I did Docker Kubernetes cluster. By the way, to complete all this step, it will take you just only 25 to 30 minutes. It may look huge, but if you follow these steps, all these things can be created within 25 to 30 minutes. Okay, so don't worry about this, that it's too large. In fact, a lot of companies do this mistake that if you go and do this kind of testing, it will take 1 or 2 days to create the environment itself. Don't worry about it. You can just follow these steps and your clusters would be ready within 1 hour max. Fine. So here I installed Docker first, right? You don't have to go into too much of detail. You can go through it later. And then I basically started my cluster, right? I initialized my Kubernetes cluster and then my worker nodes joined. Okay. So right now we have got 3 worker nodes, and that you can check by doing kubectl get nodes. Here I have got 3 cluster, one of them is master and 2 of them are workers, right? So by the end of this page, you will be having your own Docker and Kubernetes cluster. Now after that, as it's visible from my presentation, that once I have my OS, I install Docker and then I install Kubernetes, and after that I'm going to install Istio. Okay. For that again, you just have to follow through these steps, right? You download the Istio, and then you have to do some kind of path setting, etc. And finally, this is the most important part here: Istio-ctl manifest apply. This is where basically we are installing Istio, and we are using a profile called demo. So Istio gives you a way to launch Prometheus, Grafana, Kiali, etc. along with the Istio installation. Getting it? So if you run this command, it will install Grafana, Prometheus, and everything along with this. This is happening only in version 1.5. So be very sure about what version we are looking at. Okay. Now, once I do this, you have to wait for some time, and then Istio will be up. Like within 5-10 minutes, Istio will be up. And once your Istio is up, you will be able to see a new namespace on Kubernetes, kubectl get ns, and you can see a new Istio system namespace has been created. And then you can see what is going on here by saying -n and Istio system. Okay, so you can see within the Istio system namespace, you have got this Grafana, Istio, Istio-D, Kiali, Prometheus, and all of it, right? So these things do get started as soon as you do that manifest apply, right? Of course, see, when you go for your production clusters and all, this may not be that easy. I agree. Okay, because there you have to be very careful about what kind of version you are using for Prometheus, what kind of version you are using for Kiali, and what kind of you might have to use a lot of certificates, right? A certificate means those SSL certificate and secure your cluster. So that is the only thing missing here, that this cluster may not be highly secure, right? But at least for dev test clusters, this is fine. Okay, so next challenge comes that okay, now we have got everything running, at least the components are running. How do I check it? So for that, what we do is we deploy a sample application, right? This sample application is also provided by Istio only in their code. So we can just go ahead and deploy the application. So for now, so all this code is here in this one, in this folder, and you can do this. I've already, by the way, launched it, but ultimately you have to do just this: sample bookinfo platform bookinfo.yaml. Now, just to give you a glimpse of what exactly it does, see, it is already created, so right now it's saying unchanged. But let me just quickly show you what exactly this application is supposed to do. Right, that way you'll get a better idea about what is microservice also. Okay, so see, this is a demo of that. So there is this Bookinfo application. It's kind of a website, but it has got multiple microservices involved here, right? So right now it's like 4 different applications. One is the product page, which gives you a front page, and then you have got a details application, which is giving you detail, and it is written in Ruby. It is written in Python, and then one part is rating, which basically gives you like how many stars should be given on the review, and then reviews is written in Java. Okay, so at the end of the day, this is how it will look like. Okay, let me actually open it in real Live. Okay, so how to get to this book info application? You do kubectl get svc, get services hyphen n sto system. So everything, all the traffic is actually coming from this egress gateway. Just 1 second. Describe service grep hyphen I http to here. So it must be available here at this port. So after deploying your application, you can simply use your public IP. Oops. What is that? 31210. 31210. So this is my book application. Just give me a second. Okay, till then, please understand this part, our application, what exactly is it supposed to do, right? So all these things that you are seeing here, this demo application, once you open this website, you should be getting book detail. Now remember, this part, book details, is actually coming from one microservice. Book reviews is coming from another microservice, right? Product page itself is another service. The number of stars that you are getting here, that is coming from another microservice. So this is not just one application, it's a combination of 4 different applications, 4 different microservices, right? And give me a second, I need to just switch it. Here. Okay, so this is our book info sample application. By the way, just let's see the poll results before we proceed. Okay, I'm sharing the poll result so that we understand that where we are. Okay, so 86% have responded to we have a beginner level knowledge. 37% are planning to start as soon as possible, and 45% are exploring it. Okay, and 66% are coming from software engineer role. Okay, so looking at the audience, bear with me. I think a lot of people have joined who are exploring this. So don't worry about it. I'm just giving you an overview, and we can talk about these things later, that how to go and do it in the real time. I just want to show you the picture that how exactly your future applications are going to look at it. Sorry, how your future application are going to look like. Okay, so this is, for example, this is a sample application. Previously you used to have only one jar file, one tar file that you used to deploy. Now it's a combination of multiple microservices, and the result on this page, it's basically sum of multiple microservices. Okay, and you can actually look at all of this by going to this terminal. Just hold on. So when I say pods for beginners, kubectl get pods basically gives you all about those applications. So here you have details application, product page application, rating application, and 3 versions of reviews application. So these are 4 microservices that are running, and this is the result we are getting on our browser. Fine. Now, this is simple. We have simply deployed our application till now. The main challenge is that how do we monitor it, right? Or how do we control it? Okay. So, so for that we use the next set of tools as written in our slide. That there would be things like Prometheus, Istio, Prometheus, Kiali, Jaeger, and Grafana, etc. Okay. So let me just go to the next part, which is Prometheus. How do I use Prometheus? So for Prometheus, I need to check out first from my this, that where exactly is Prometheus running. Okay, kubectl get service hyphen in Istio system, and then grep hyphen I Prometheus 32644. So this is the port we need to use, 32644. So I'll simply three two six four four. Okay, so this is my Prometheus dashboard. So Prometheus is what? Prometheus is simply a tool to do monitoring of your microservices. So right now I have shown you only 4 microservices, but think about it, in the real life you will have more than 20 microservices, or maybe sometimes even hundreds of microservices. Okay, like hundreds of applications running together at the same time. Now to monitor that, you need to have a lot of data. This Prometheus tools collects a lot of matrices coming from all those applications and tools, right? So you get a lot of this kind of tools, this kind of matrix, and Prometheus basically gives you kind of a graph to show that. So you can have something like API server. You need to know which one to actually pick here. Let me take anything. For example, API server request total, and if I just execute it, you see all this data. Now I understand this is too much data, so it's not really very effective way to look at it and monitor it, and that is why we have got another tool called Grafana. Okay, now Grafana is something using which you can basically visualize these matrices in a better way. Okay, so I'm going to go for Grafana. Oops. This is my Grafana dashboard, and I can simply have a dashboard, and this is by pods, right? So one of the basic questions that is asked in microservices are that if you are dividing your monolith into too many microservices, how do you monitor it, right? This is how you monitor it, by using Prometheus and then by using things like Grafana, etc. So now if you go to my default namespace and select my microservice, let's say product page, it is exactly going to tell me that how much CPU is being used by my application, how much RAM it is being used, right? How much CPU utilization and RAM utilization. The data could be incorrect a bit. I have not checked it, right? But this is how basically you monitor. This is how actually you are going to monitor your application in the future. Once you have got all this whole cloud native platform set up, then which container is performing, how good it is performing, how much RAM, how much memory it is consuming. You should be basically using this thing rather than going to your system and doing a top command or stats command or Docker stats or kubectl commands. Rather than that, you will be using this kind of dashboard to find out that which application is consuming how much resource. And this is just one example. This is just analysis by pod. There could be analysis by cluster, analysis by node, and lot of other options provided by Grafana. Okay, so Grafana basically uses Prometheus in the backend, and Prometheus uses all these applications to fetch all these matrices, right? So this is about Prometheus and Grafana. And now this is, if you think that this is good, you need to look at Kiali and Jaeger actually. Okay, so Kiali and Jaeger are basically a kind of a next generation tool to make your monitoring very easy and very with very good visualization especially. Okay, so this is the Kiali application. Remember, Kiali is basically running on top of Stio. Okay, Kiali is basically a tool to visualize your service mesh. Okay, now you can just have a look on this diagram. This whole diagram basically is representing what we showed you in the presentation, right? That there are 4 microservices: product page, details, reviews, and ratings. These are the 4 applications running. And now Kiali can actually show you that how exactly it is being, how exactly the traffic is flowing, how exactly the request calls are being made, right? Let me just zoom it a bit. Okay, so first a request comes to product page application, and then product page sends it to details, and then it sends the request to reviews, and then finally reviews sends it the request to ratings. Okay, if you want to understand this one, this is your product page. This information comes from details microservice. This information comes from reviews, and if you just refresh it once, okay, you might see the stars. The stars are actually coming from the rating service, how many stars. Since there are three deployments, so you can see no star, black star, and red star. These 3 things are indicating to 3 different versions. Okay. Okay, I'm sorry if it looks like I'm going too fast, because I'm trying to show you exactly how the output should look like. How it is built, we can discuss later, right? But this is how your future applications are going to look like, right? For example, if you don't get like right now, you see, I think a lot of you are actually making some requests to this. Okay, in fact, I also did. I just refresh that page multiple times. Now this green thing here is showing that how the traffic is flowing, and if there is any problem, this will start showing here the errors. Right now you can see all is green because everything is working fine, right? But it will start turning red if there is some problem in here. Okay, so this is how you can use Kiali. This whole diagram has been created automatically by Kiali just by looking at your configuration and the flow of the traffic, right? Each of the rectangle here is basically one set of application, right? So 4 products deployed parallelly. Okay, now the last thing that I wanted to show you is Jaeger. Okay, and then I'll come to the question answer part. So get service system and on. So Jaeger query is running on 1631000. Okay. Okay, so 31000, this is my Jaeger. Okay, what do you mean by Jaeger? Jaeger basically is a tracing tool, right? So if I just click on find tracing, this is basically telling that in the previous Kiali diagram, when the traffic is going from one application to another application, how much time it is taking. Okay, one of the major concern in microservices is the latency. Okay, how much time it takes for the packet to go from one microservice to another microservice, right? Now for that you don't have to worry too much. You can just install Jaeger, and Jaeger is going to basically give you something like this. Okay, so it exactly tells you that when the traffic is received at ingress gateway, how much time it took to send it to product page. So you can see the whole this particular request was completed in 51 milliseconds, and out of that 51 millisecond, which microservice took how much time. Okay, so you can see here it looks like the product page and reviews page are taking most of the time, right? This horizontal bar, this is basically showing how much time it has taken. Okay, so when multiple applications are talking to each other, Jaeger can tell you exactly which is taking how much time, so that if you have to tune your application or your microservice based architecture, then you can find out that what is your bottleneck, which is consuming most of your resource that you can take from Grafana, and which one is taking most of your time that you can trace by using this Jaeger. Also, if there has been some problem, some errors, then it will also start showing you in this traces itself. Okay, there is a lot that can be done by Jaeger. There is a lot that can be done by Kiali and Prometheus and Grafana, all of that. But I just want to show you a glimpse of these applications, that ultimately this is how your future applications are going to look like, right? If you start adopting microservices today, these are the tools which are going to make your life easy. Okay, as I said, the way you have been building monolith or your traditional application, the same approach will not work anymore. So you have to use all these tools, and don't worry, all these tools are basically free and open source, so you can get started without investing anything. Okay, and you can create your own cloud native platform at zero cost. Okay, so just to come back to this, this is what we did. We showed you Docker, Kubernetes, Prometheus, Istio, now Kiali, Jaeger, and Grafana. Right now, yeah, all these things, the way it was built, everything is there on GitHub link. But I think we have 10 minutes left, and since I have got 17 questions already, I think we can spend most of our time on question and answer. Okay. So I am going to take your questions now. If you have any question, just let me know here. Okay, I'm starting chronologically. So Harsh Raj has asked a question. What all you considered? Okay, what all you considered while choosing your solution? Like why not ELK stack or Hysterix, etc.? Why Grafana and others? So Harsh, my motive here, at least for this webinar, is to basically expose you to these tools, give you just a glimpse of what all it can do. I was going to use ELK, etc., but then I thought that it would be too much for a 60-minute webinar. But to answer your question more, see, Grafana has its own use case. Grafana is there for visualizing matrices. ELK stack is mostly used for log monitoring. Okay, Prometheus can also do the log monitoring, but ELK gives you a better analysis of your logs, right? So you can actually integrate ELK with even AI, machine learning kind of stuff also to make some predictive analysis by monitoring your logs. It can also, you can also tell that, okay, this is the kind of failure that will happen, which has not happened till now, but all the symptoms are there to predict any failure. So ELK can be used along with Prometheus and Grafana. It's not about either this or that. Okay, it's about that how many tools you are ready to invest. Okay, and are you going to use all those capabilities there or not? Okay. Next question is from Deepak Sachdeva. So he's asking how microservices applications communicate with each other. Is there any standard protocol for that? So for communication across microservices, Deepak, there are a lot of options. You can normally use REST APIs. So now REST API is based on HTTP protocol. They are basically quite flexible. Okay, so the bottom line is that we should not be having too much, rule-driven communication, and that's why HTTP is one of the best options. But it has got a lot of latency, especially if you're coming from telecom domain. So for that, a lot of other alternatives are there, like gRPC you can use. You can use Apache Thrift, right? Various communication protocols you can use. You can even use your socket connections also. But the problem with the socket connection is that it's very much synchronous communication, and it doesn't scale better. Okay, so if you want to really create a scalable application, you should go for gRPC or HTTP based REST communication. Okay, there is one anonymous attendee. I understand the microservices we need to break based on the concept each microservices can contain how many endpoints. I'm asking from the REST perspective. That's just one of the factor. Okay, his question is that normally we divide microservices based on how many endpoints we want to create, but actually there is a lot of other factors other than just looking at the endpoint. Okay, for example, when you're breaking your monolith into microservice, there are a lot of design patterns, and I do take 3 days of training only on the design pattern itself. So there are a lot of microservice based design patterns, and it depends on like what kind of business function you are going to provide. Can you decouple your business functions separately or not? Those kind of factors are also there. How many endpoints? That's just one of the factors. Of course, if there are many endpoints, that means there are multiple functions you are doing. Okay, but that's not the only criteria. Next question. The tools you shown in the last slide, except for Kubernetes and Docker, or belong to AIOps. Can I say that? Not really. These are not. See, what is AIOps? AIOps is basically when you have machine learning or AI based application, how do you automate them? How do you automate them using CI/CD integration and maybe doing more analysis over log monitoring, etc. So that is basically AIOps. So when your applications are basically based on the AI or machine learning. This is simple cloud native tools. Okay, they can be applied on the AI and machine learning based application also, but they are not really a part of AIOps. Okay, AIOps is simply a fancy term which means DevOps for machine learning based applications. Simple. Okay. Surya Mandal is asking, we have converted, I think, we have converted monolith to microservices, but managing service, tracing bugs, etc. in microservices is very tough. Yeah, Surya, I agree. In fact, this whole objective is to show you that if you have, if you have broken down your monolith into microservices and you are using the whole traditional approach, right, of managing it, it is going to be very, very tough. Okay, not just tough, but very tough. right? Think about it. You have been managing one application. Now you have got, let's say, 100 applications running in a distributed system across a cluster, set of cluster. Yes, it is difficult, and that is why it is recommended that you use cloud native tools such as this, Prometheus, Grafana, etc. For example, by using this Kiali, it doesn't matter that where exactly my applications are running. You see, I have just given it one of the node address. I have though chosen master node, but I could have given only even the worker node or other IP address, right? So these tools know that cluster is being managed by Kubernetes and the underlying system is a distributed system. Without using these tools, if you go from monolithic to microservices, it's going to be hard. I agree, right? Even the system that I've shown you, there are a lot of weaknesses, I know, for this system, but at least it's good to get started. Deepak Sasdeva is asking, in our project working in wireless telecom radio technologies, is migrating to microservices whether RTT requirement 1 millisecond on radio interface will be met? Deepak, I can't answer it directly. I mean, a lot of telecom based companies are doing this, right? I mean, I have given a lot of training to telecom based companies, and whole telecom domain is going to move to that. But remember, microservices and monolith can coexist. Okay, so if those modules which are very much latency sensitive, etc., you can still keep on using your monolith, but you can also start using microservices for those functions which can be decoupled, right? Or which are basically changing frequently, or which are not going to impact on the latency part or something like that. Right, for example, your management dashboard portals, right? uh, those kind of portals can be segregated from your actual core application, and that can run as a different microservice. Okay, so when I say monolith to microservice, it doesn't mean that you are going to just just going to throw your monolith. Okay, this is a whole journey from monolith to microservice. This is basically journey, and this journey will take at least 2 to 3 years to complete. And even after that, for telecom related application, maybe monoliths would be there running parallel to microservices. Okay, another question, while scaling up any microservice, how DB gets scaled? Now, scaling DB is a real challenge. Okay, and a lot of thought leaders in domain of microservices, they say that don't try to kind of put your DB, etc. Don't basically convert DB into microservices to begin with, at least. Okay, first convert your stateless monoliths into microservices. Database should be the last one where you basically go from monolith to microservices. Okay, that's a hard problem to solve. There are a lot of solutions like stateful applications, and a lot of tools are coming in like Portworx and other management tools which you can use to make this thing easy. But yes, to begin with, it's not really that easy. Okay. Next question coming from Karthi. I'll try to wrap up. Don't worry if I can't complete all these questions. We will be sending you a detailed answer to these questions over the mail when we'll be sharing the recording. All these questions will be answered and will be mailed to you. So feel free to drop in questions even when we don't have time to cover. Okay. Can you please explain how microservices is adopted with the scenario? This is, I think, a long answer for this question. Okay, so yeah, I mean, a lot of consideration has to be put into, and I think we don't have sufficient time to go through all of this as of now. But I will be, giving you some links and some answer through mail. Okay. Okay, I'm going to take 2 more questions and then we can wrap it up. Okay, Vishal is asking, please repeat what is the use of Istio system. So see, Istio system, Istio is basically a service mesh tool. Like right now, you've got a lot of these kind of applications, right? Maybe you want to control the way these microservices are communicating with each other. So Istio provides you this kind of traffic control, security. It also generates a lot of matrices, which are ultimately being monitored by all these things like Kiali and Jagger and all of this. Right? This diagram was made based on the kind of configuration we have. So Kiali basically uses Istio to kind of generate this diagram, right? So Istio is basically a service mesh which can do traffic control, security, can provide you security, and also can give you a lot of monitoring facilities. Okay. Okay, I again see a few questions about Ingress and Helm also, but I think we can talk about this later, right? They are basically another set of tools in the cloud native domain to make your life easy. Okay, Ingress is basically something that works like a load balancer or router, and Helm is more for release management. Okay. So yes, recording of the session would be shared with you all. I think we are going, like, there are a lot of questions to be answered. I will be taking it up. I mean, I'll take some time to answer this over mail, and you'll be getting the question answer for that. Okay. That's all, Purvi, from my side. I think we have a lot of questions to be answered. There are 25 questions received in this. I think we can draft a mail later on and where we can answer these questions. Yeah, over to you.
So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Now, this brings us to the end of our webinar. Thank you, Ashish, for taking your time amidst your busy schedule for educating us on cloud native platform. I'm sure this session has been really productive for the listeners. And thank you all for joining the webinar today. I really appreciate the time and effort you all took to join us today on this platform. We have received an overwhelming response from you guys, and this encourages us to do many more of such webinars in the near future. So recording of this webinar would be available on edyoda.com post-processing, and we will notify you once it is updated. Also, there is always room for improvement, and I request all of you please pass on your feedback or suggestions to us, which would enable us to improve our services in terms of logistic content and communication. So really thank you once again, one more time, for joining us today, and have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.